welcome to the show. This is a podcast where we uncover the truth about the creative process by talking to folk from all walks of life and also uncover the truth about the X-Files. Spoiler, there's a lot to it. I managed to get out the cold since last week and smuggled aboard this nuclear submarine, trying not to think about the immense pressure outside the hull at any one moment. I don't know if you ever went potholing with the Scouts as a kid or watched the TV show 999 presented by Michael Burke. Either way, not best to think about any of those things right now. I was actually supposed to be in court this week, jury service, I should say. I had big ideas, I tell you, about what to expect, about me, being the lone voice of reason in the jury room, of this being the start of a whole new career in law for me. Seaboard QC, KC now, isn't it? For We Have a King, lest we forget. Alas, I didn't even get past the pre-recorded phone message that you have to ring as a potential juror, so I won't be deciding if you are guilty or not guilty anytime soon. But it does mean that I can devote more time to today's podcast and to today's guest, and it's a big one. For today we have a returning guest. Yes, it's Suffolk-based comics, novel and screenplay writer and artist Jon Chandler. You remember me banging on about Jon's brilliant work and his books like John's Worth and Another Rude World. Just check it out. It's really strange in a brilliant way. And I'm glad he's back to talk about UFO sightings, and in particular the landmark case of Betty and Barney Hill and the thoroughly disturbing TV movie starring James Earl Jones. Jon also talks about the practice of remote viewing and its applications, and why he personally won't be training to be a psychic spy anytime soon. He also talks about his own brushes with the paranormal, 90s TV adverts, and we still get time for a swift chat about X-Files Season 2, Episode 17 Endgame, in which Scully is kidnapped again and Mulder offers his sister Samantha forward as a ransom. As I say, absolutely brilliant to have Jon back on. He's an absolute fountain of knowledge. I'm really interested to get into all aspects of that with him. As always, if you like our show, please do leave me a message, subscribe, review, follow us on X, Instagram, YouTube, Threads, TikTok. Slight delay in doing any more TikToks because we've now caught up with the TikToks I've done, but thank you for enjoying those if you like those on TikTok. In the meantime, we see, we hear, we feel, we can even sense things, but for some reason, some of us sense more than others. The Ford Mondeo. That's £5,000, please, Ford. Here's Jon.
Trick-or-treat was never a big thing down here. Probably now it is, but when I was a kid it wasn't part of Halloween at all, really. Not as such. That's like a more recent affair. And actually a friend of mine, he said he was in... I feel sorry for people in cities, because being in the countryside was just brilliant at Halloween. The clocks have just changed, haven't they? It's all dark.
Yeah, right.
And you go out for a ghost walk or something in the woods, and it would shit you up. I kid you not.
Yeah.
Whereas people in the city, it's like, so a friend of mine was saying, we're going to go and do some... He took his kid to do some trick-or-treating. He said, some of the places are going a bit far, though, like just in some shops.
Right.
Like, what do you mean? Like sexy stuff? He said, no. Went in the estate agents and there's like a big animatronic werewolf.
Oh, right.
The little kid was actually like just frozen in the middle of the floor. And I was like, yeah, that's what Halloween's for. It's not about them getting candy. What are you on about?
Yeah, I'm all for it. Body bags hanging up, all that, as much as you can go. We, they love it in Scotland, absolutely love it. And you have to do, when you're going around with your little bucket of sweets, it's mandatory to do a little song or dance. And if you don't do a little song or dance... or joke, then you don't get your sweeties. So
well, that's good.
Well, I was in a very strange headspace because we'd gone out around a particularly posh area of Edinburgh because that's where all the sweets are, and they'd done all the houses up, and I'd gone, of course, dressed as Mulder / Doggett, and I got the badge. I'd done the badge. I'd had a shave, and this was an issue because I was walking up to parents going, "Oh, any spooky phenomenon?" and they did not recognise me, so they thought I was like some strange man.
They thought you were from the Gov.
Yeah, they actually thought I was an FBI agent. So they went, "Oh right, yeah, I'd not got my glasses on either." So there was a bit of consternation there from the parents.
Hey, I tell you what you should have done. You should have walked up, got your badge out. And do you remember that last episode we watched, Tombs? He walks up the door, he shows the badge and walks in at the same time.
Just barge straight in.
FBI. Should have just walked in, slipped in the door and said, any spooky activity.
So what are you up to at the minute then, John? You busy?
Yeah, this exact moment, I'm just finishing up putting a couple of books together. One is of the Instagram comic I just did called, what was it called? It's called You're Scraping My Data.
Yeah, lovely.
And so I'm going to put that in a little book because people like a physical copy of such things. Sure. And then book of my dad's cartoons.
Oh, right.
And he kind of seemed quite excited that I'd do that. I was like, I'll get around to it. I mentioned it to him and he keeps kind of wondering about it. And I'm like, it's in the queue, mate. And I thought, let's get it done.
So what are his stuff like then?
Well, it's interesting. It starts off because like from 20 years ago, I think he started drawing. He was going to do like an autobiography. My life is how I remember it, and then it just immediately went mad, just bonkers stuff. So there's a few pages of that. Then, but more recently, these tea box cartoons, I call them, where he breaks a tea box down and kind of just draws on the insides of it. And he did a lot of that during the pandemic. And it was really interesting. They kind of went really political. Yeah. And his Christmas cards as well. You can see through the years, they kind of start getting a little political as well.
And I guess that's quite a nice format to work in because you've only got so much space, I guess.
Yeah,
yeah, cool.
It's a nightmare to scan in. You can figure out how to do them as spreads, but
yeah.
It's taken ages. I'm getting it.
Oh, fantastic! Oh, so that's in the works to come out soon, then, is it?
Yeah. Cool. Oh, and Tiago's working on something.
Oh, yeah.
Adjacent to my involvement, I'll say.
Cool.
I don't know if we should say what it is yet. He's visiting his parents at the minute. He's visiting his family in Brazil.
Yeah.
And when he's back there, he makes short films with his brother often.
I know, it's wild. And I was like, where's he shot? I didn't, like an idiot. I was like, where's he shot this? And it was like, oh, it's actually in Brazil. Of course it is.
Yeah, slightly rural. Yeah. And it's got such a peculiar feeling, atmosphere to us. We're like, where is this place? It's coming from. It's somewhere we don't see very often.
Yeah, that's really cool. No, he seems to be doing really well with custom as well. That seems to be out and about quite a lot.
Yeah, look, doing festivals and stuff.
It feels really original and exciting. And I sat in Glasgow Film Theatre and watched it. And that that Fright Fest crowd didn't know what to make it. They felt like, this is, I feel uncomfortable at this. It's like they're sat there having a lovely time watching these gory horror films. And then something really strange comes along like that. And totally divided the room. And I know afterwards I spoke to Tiago and he was like, he felt a bit down on it. I was like, no man, this is what you strive for as an artist, isn't it? People go, what the fuck was that? I've just watched.
Brilliant. Oh yeah, I'm glad you've done that because I remember looking at the reviews afterwards after that event on Letterboxd, and it really was like it split the room. And, but I thought people were like, I just want to see another Brain Dead or something. You think that enjoy like something different on their plate, something to switch up their palate a little bit. Yeah,
there's no sort of you just reminded me of a bit. I went to Walter parties once this must be about 20 years ago now, but that's great. For people who've not been, is it's like strange music, and like Slint curated it one year and Faith No More and that sort of thing, but they have it in Pontins or Butlins or a kind of chalet holiday home space. So you've got all these kind of hipsters walking around like Bogner, playing fruit machines, and then going to see like Merzbow or some noise artist. But and I really enjoyed it. And there was like, you'd have lightning bolt playing in a cabin or something, really loud, noisy stuff. But like I went to Neil Hamburger was on, right? The sort of strange American stand-up who's a character, and his act is about, he's a dreadful sideshow entertainer. People hated it, man.
Really?
People were booing it, and not in a kind of like, because he likes being booed. People were like getting aggro in a sort of way that's like, I know what I like and I don't like this, and I'm prepared to tolerate sort of 45 minutes of absolute scrawl, just ear splitting, but I can't stand a man talking about Julia Roberts' vagina. Like, this is why that you're not prepared to sort of give, and he just walked off. And after like sort of 10, 15 minutes, and he must have been booked for, a 45-minute set. So like that really sort of, opened my eyes about the fact the intolerance of the arts. It's a waste.
Yeah, I just hide here and imagine what that world is, and then put my stuff out in the world, and then start working on something else straight away.
I think that's a fair summation, because then when it's out. I know a lot of artists talk about this, but it's like when it's out there, you sort of got to let go of it a bit, haven't you?
Yeah.
I'm so pleased to have you back on, John, because we've got so much to get into.
I know.
Oh wow! And you sent me through some bits that you'd like to have a chat about, and I know chat's gonna go here, there, and everywhere. But one of the links you did send me was a link to a Channel 4 documentary about psychic spies. Right. So this is a documentary from 1995 about the CIA and the NSA and I guess the Soviet services as well, looking into the use of something called remote viewing, and I thought this was absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing this the first time around. Actually, it's probably my first introduction to remote viewing. I'd completely forgotten until I watched this again. One thing I'd like to talk about is, did you enjoy the adverts? Because it's one of those ones that's ripped from TV, and then the adverts were still
yes, and I made a note about that. It's great, and it's like whoever's in charge of those adverts, whoever's booked them in, has done so well, because the first ad break, you've got a Mondeo ad, right? And this Mondeo is driving around all these beautiful, it looks like the Blue Ridge Parkway trees in America. You've got the Vertigo music, Berman Turban Vertigo music. It's talking about sort of extrasensory perception and us feel, sort of, so you think about, oh, this car's going to make you do this. And then I think it's like tree falls in the road. Who steps out of the car? Only David Duchovny, right? I was like, yeah, boy. This is like absolutely blew my mind. And I went, oh shit, I totally forgot that. And of course he would do the adverts in the 90s, because I feel like it's so siloed that he's like, oh, he is Fox Mulder, that's all he's doing for like 20 years. No, of course he's not. He's doing some adverts. Wonderful stuff. Really punched the air at that. That was lovely.
It was a nice surprise for me as well. And I was like, this was after I'd sent you the link. Right. So then I sat down to watch it after I'd sent you that link. Because I'd just come across it recently and was waiting to see it, and I was like, now is the time.
Yeah.
But the other adverts were really interesting, because I think it's not just that they've programmed the adverts well, but it shows the adverts that were around at the time were very heavily influenced by... Now, is it a snake eating itself? Was it the X-Files causing it? Or was it an interest in the paranormal causing the X-Files?
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah.
So you've got adverts, there's like a kind of comedy one with the Men in Black. You've got like a beer advert about past lives.
Yeah.
And there's like a couple of others, and Alan Shearer in a couple of adverts as well.
And there was an advert set on a space station. I think that was Kit Kat.
That's right, yeah.
Was that Kit Kat?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, really enjoyed that. But it was, a really great sort of time capsule, actually, to look back. And I'll tell you what I did after this, actually. We're not even talked about documentary yet, have we? But I went and saw what else was in that YouTube channel. And they put a load of old Equinox. That's another Channel 4 documentary that used to... I don't know what its sort of focus was, but it was, you'd see some strange stuff on there. And there was one... There's really well-made, odd, strange documentaries. And one was about like Steve Backley, the javelin thrower. And, and he was like sat in the cinema watching pictures of his old self, which was really strange. But what really did it for me is like the opening credits of Equinox. You've got this kind of machine, these lenses aligning, and this metallic soundtrack, and then it shot a ray of light through these lenses, and you get the shape of a sort of mouth, and it go Equinox. And I always remember that really terrified me as a child. I'd probably turn it off after that.
Every time I see the word Equinox, I still hear it.
Yeah.
That's how powerful it was.
Yeah.
And watching the adverts, thinking about that, I felt quite melancholic. I was like, I really want to be in the 90s again for a little while. And made me kind of morose in a way.
Yeah.
Kind of a joyful moroseness.
Well, we thought we'd sorted it, hadn't we? We thought we'd sorted gender politics, we'd sorted racism. Everybody's having a great time. It's especially in Britain, it's cool Britannia and all that, and then things went rapidly downhill when we hit 2000.
Damn, Arts TV was good.
Yeah. You've got a South Bank show on. You've got like late night Channel 4 was probably still a thing. I know this is from Channel
Yeah.
4, but 4 later.
The fact
that
that
used to
this
be
got
great.
made, yeah. I tell you one thing really interesting about the show was seeing Lynn Buchanan in there. I've seen some interviews with him recently now, old, and I was like, wait a minute, he's already old.
Right.
I was really shocked at kind of how old he looked. He's the kind of friendly looking one with the wife. Later on, they're kind of just waving outside the house.
Right.
And he has got a very gentle demeanour to him, very, very different from Ed Dames. He seems, he's got a kind of a nasty energy following him around. He's the guy with the kind of blonde bob and the big shades.
He was
the
fantastic.
kind of Terminator shades.
Yeah. And I liked that everybody had got a sort of speciality as well. You know, some of them
definitely,
were really good at people, identifying people from afar, and others were really good at identifying buildings. But in the documentary filmmaker, he's great, a guy called Jim Sharple, I think, and he sort of does a test, doesn't he, with one of the remote viewers. And I did sort of question that slightly in terms of like, what are you asking this person to do? Because it's almost bordering on like cold reading, you know, it's almost like you've done a parlour trick here. And have you said to this person, this remote reader, I'm thinking of somewhere, figure it out. And you could probably go, and the place he was thinking of was Bikini Atoll, where one of the nuclear explosions took place. They did some testing in the 50s, 60s. And I think you could probably get to, I don't know, were you convinced by that particular section? Because I was with this documentary for a lot going, wow, this is really a thing. And then when he did that, I thought this has had the opposite effect.
Well, this is interesting. That scene, I think, was not the best representation of remote viewing. It is a thing.
Yeah.
There are two types of remote viewing. There's one where you have like a monitor in the room.
Right.
Who like ask about certain things. Like if they're so in the military, so this is like when was this? Between like the 70s to the 90s.
Yeah.
So they have a specific idea of what they're looking for, and the person being tasked, often they were never actually told what the target was, because it's classified. They might just say you've done a good job, or they don't even know if they've done a good job, but they assume they've done a good job because they keep asking them to do more work.
Yeah.
Now there's two types. The cold reading is with the feedback, he's saying correct. He's kind of pushing him towards something. You've got body language.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen very often now within the community, and I do follow it, and it's insane. I'm completely obsessed with it.
Yeah.
But the idea that anyone can sit down, well, with a lot of training, you get particularly good at it. And you can project yourself to anywhere in time and space. And if you think you don't know what the task is, it's just a series of numbers. Because originally they did give map coordinates. But then they realised you don't need them. There's something about the intention. So you attach attention, the person who's tasking it, to a series of numbers.
Right.
It's absolutely wild.
Right.
And there's a thing as well where people are new to it. They have like a kind of a newbie's success, they call it.
Right.
So some of the people, the higher ups, they'd say this is rubbish, and they'd get these colonels in or whatever and go, let's have a go. And often people's first go is quite good.
Right. Okay.
It can put people off because then it sort of goes downhill. For some reason, that first one is quite, I think because people are kind of not that bothered, they're not thinking about it.
Yeah.
People always ask me, are you interested in trying to do remote viewing? Would you do it? And I'm not, for a couple of reasons. One is my job is I'm a storyteller, and I just don't trust myself not to start attaching stories to what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
And often they have the thing where they write down to the side, if they think they've found a target, they know what it is, they'll stop because it ruins the session. It's better if they don't know what it is. It becomes more accurate. Or they'll put, this is an assumption, they'll write it to the side. There's like a special code that they write down.
Yeah.
And the other reason is I don't like doing crosswords.
Right.
I don't mind doing...
Yeah.
I don't mind doing Sudoku because I know I can complete this task. But the frustration of, I don't know if I can finish this.
Yeah.
I don't know if I actually have the knowledge to finish this, or if I'm going to get to where I need to get to complete this.
I got stuck slightly in terms of how it was being framed in a military context. Like, is it the kind of process of it? I presume they're putting in various sort of restrictions, like you say, to sort of guide the viewer. So they're not just sitting you down going, think of a space, time and space. They're going, right, we're looking at somewhere in this radius in Iraq. We need some more intel in it. Off you go.
No, they were not even that specific.
Right.
Maybe they did actually talk specifically about Iraq, but I think what I would just say is they'll just give them the coordinates.
Yeah, okay.
And they're that good enough time. Say you got a 75% hit rate. It's enough intel that they can find places.
Right.
they can figure out, because if you could, because the stuff that comes in could be quite abstract, but if you know what what the target might be,
Yeah.
you can make something out of that.
Yeah.
Now, Lynn Buchanan, in an interview recently, he said during the Iraq War, he was getting really bummed out. It's just like Saddam Hussein stuff. It was just nasty stuff. Into his commanding officer's, his like office, and he says, "Listen, can you like chuck me in Mother Teresa or something? This is really bumming me out."
Yeah.
And his commanding officer says, "This is your job. You're in the military. Get out of my office."
Right.
And he's like, "Yes, sir." And he just gets on with it. Because I think, and also he says he does, like later on when he left, he'd do a lot of missing person
Right. Got it. Yeah.
tasks for the police or whatever, or individuals.
Yeah.
And he says, you have to be kind of mentally strong. Because if you don't know what people are giving you,
Yeah.
it could be anything. It could be quite nasty. And you've kind of, a lot of them are quite good at removing themselves from it. But I saw one recently, a guy, it was like the P. Diddy stuff, and he kind of just broke down. He kind of hit when they were doing, they didn't know what it was. When they were being the reveal, they do videos of the reveal where the tasker shows what it was. And he starts thinking about what was going on. He had to like just leave.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And that's like a really experienced remote viewer. They've got protocols for sectioning off that from the rest of their lives. So it can be pretty dangerous. And there's stuff there's tasks as well that like, there's things they think they probably shouldn't look at because they can get in trouble. Now, do you think they still have a program going on?
Going into that doc, I was like, well, of course, the security services would be looking into any possible angle to get any intel on any other country. It was funny because I watched another doc about Port and Down, where they make those biological weapons.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just like totally pointless doing this documentary because I think it was Michael Mosley was going, and what happens in that building? And they can't tell you. Right, okay. So he just like has to spend most of it on like a grassy verge talking about what did happen back in the day. I totally wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know how good I am anymore, but I did tests in the past, and what's known as a super recognizer, some good faces.
Right.
If anyone's looking at this and I don't recognize you in real life, I'm sorry. Don't take it personally. It gets
the one person.
When I don't recognize someone, I've taken really gets me down because like, oh no, if I failed this, I failed my one skill I've got in life.
How did you sort of quantify that then? Do you just realise you've got a very good memory, and then you realised it's actually it's a thing?
Oh no, it's like a kind of one of the universities was doing a test online, and it was one of those ones that got shared around when I was on Facebook years ago.
Yeah.
And everyone was doing it, and I did it and got 100%.
Incredible.
I was like, and it felt really hard.
Yeah,
like towards the end, I wasn't using my conscious mind at all. It was like that one, that one, that one. They were like obscuring faces, and they were like, "Do you remember these from the ones before?"
Incredible.
And they're really blurred out, and I was like, "Oh, maybe I've got this ability." Because I walked in the living room the other day, and there was old man started watching a Western, of course, on the Western channel, and. I glanced over and there's like some guys. It's like a hold up. I don't know if they've got some people off a train.
Yeah.
And there's a guy in the background. And they've all got like bandanas on. And I go, "Oh, Harry Dean Stanton's in this." And then just glanced.
Right.
A friend wrote to me when I posted my publicly. I posted, "Look, I got 100% on this. How's everyone else doing?" And the people who were really good wrote back. The people who weren't good were kind of average. No one wants to say they're average, so no one said anything.
Right.
One guy said, "Yeah, it's like 60%. I've got face blindness." I can't remember if people have got a beard or glasses. But then a guy wrote to me, he works for the like immigration in New Zealand. And he said, "Oh, I do facial recognition for a job." And I was like, "For real?" Because I was thinking, how can I monetize this? He says, "Oh yeah, I just compare pairs of faces all day." And I'm like, "Wait,
God.
you don't think you're training a machine to do your job, do you?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah."
Right.
So my thinking is, with remote viewing, they've got like a machine in the dungeon somewhere, which is just like a brain.
Yeah.
It's like an Equinox machine in the basement with like a brain in it, and they just program in what they want. It just does it for them.
Totally. Yeah, I can totally see that coming out in a couple of years in the same way as. Well, I'm hoping we're going to get a lot more UFO info. John, you probably know about this more than I will, given Donald Trump's now back in power, and he's just going to open the doors, release all the files. And I mean, I'm not entirely convinced. He did that with the JFK stuff, and wasn't like the world ground to a halt. It was like, oh yeah, there's some more interesting stuff which we probably already knew. But are you secretly excited that there's going to be full disclosure?
This is an interesting one. JFK stuff. the idea that they've just got it's just in a filing cabinet somewhere. So here it is. Here's exactly what we did,
Yeah,
and it's not
yeah,
burnt at the bottom of the river
right, yeah, fair.
next to an alien body hunter at the bottom of a river. But it's so maybe also conspiracy theories are real,
Yeah,
but only if they happened 30 years ago.
yeah, sure, yeah,
I remember when Trump was in power the first time, thinking, "Oh no, he's not going to be the disclosure president.
right.
This is typical. Well done, mankind. This mad clown is going to be the guy." Biden has got an opportunity to do something very funny right now, to just slip it in just as he's leaving. just as he kind of dodders off and he kind of turns around, and does that kind of
Yeah, a little wink.
lucid
Yeah,
smile, and then he sort of like and he turns around and kind of staggers off. He just
yeah.
turns around and goes, "Oh yeah, just one more thing," and he comes back to the podium. Trump was on Joe Rogan's show, and I couldn't be bothered to watch it, but I watched the clips about the UFOs, and just the way he talks about stuff. I compared it recently to trying to pick through an owl pellet.
Right,
Like you're
yeah,
looking
right.
for that looks a bit like this, that looks a bit like that. So he does say some things, but nothing at all.
Hmm.
And he says, "Oh, and there's the space people," he calls them. There's the space people, which I know you're really interested in. And,
Yeah.
he's trying to pin him down on it. Joe Rogan's trying to pin him down. And he just starts talking about, he goes off about firing generals
Right.
from Afghanistan who were in charge of the Afghanistan withdrawal. He's a genius.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if he just relies on it.
The thing is, it's almost like if you were in a room with Trump, you would just, I guess the interviewer is just hoping, like you say, that he's going to come out with the law of averages says that he's, at some point in this absolute dirge that's coming out of his mouth,
Yep.
there's going to be a chunk of gold. But in allowing him the space to just monologue, you just end up getting this, he's just tying himself in circles with it.
You can get out of anything. You need someone like Bernie in there because I just watched some clips of a Bernie interview,
Right.
and the contrast, my God.
Yeah, yeah.
Bernie's just like straight to the point. Here's your answer.
Yeah.
No more words unnecessary. Let's move on. And another thing that he says, and there's the life on Mars and the other planets. And Rogan kind of cuts in and says, "Oh no, you mean like microbial stuff?" And he's kind of filling in his answer. It's like, "Oh, we nearly got something out of him. There.
Yes.
Nearly had something there."
Yeah, a shame.
Now, coming up in 2 days' time, there's another congressional hearing on UAPs. I don't know if you've been following that stuff.
No.
Well, here's a funny thing, because I was trying to look up, oh God, another rabbit
Keep
hole.
going. Yeah.
I didn't finish what I wanted to say about Lynn Buchanan yet. He talked about a really interesting paradox. If the cops come to me and say, "We've got this bank robber, we want to know where he is at 9 o'clock," and I say, "Oh, here he is, he's going in Wendy's, having his dinner,"
Right.
and they all hide in the bushes, and when he's going in there, they grab him, and they chuck him in the back of the van, they haul him off, right?
Yeah.
They got the guy.
Yeah.
And he's saying, but then surely should not my view and say, "Oh, he's in a prison cell at 9 o'clock,"
Right.
which wouldn't have happened.
Right. Yes. The total sort of yeah, because we're in Minority Report territory there, aren't we? I guess.
Yeah.
It's like if you hadn't have intervened, then what would have happened, and then you've changed the course of that future event.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Right.
But his conclusion is that in a sense you can. It gets. I don't want to go down this hole. It gets weirder. There's some things which are like rocks
Yeah.
in a river,
Yeah.
which are permanent. There's nothing. There seems to be able to. Nothing can be done about those, like big events.
Right. So you're like your 9/11 and
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
right.
it's really odd. But he says things are. It's like when he remote views, his view of what would have happened at that moment. So he does see the original version
Right.
of the guys having his dinner. Gets really weird, huh?
Incredible.
In regards to that, we won't get through all the experiences I've had, Chris.
Yeah. Well, as much as you're happy to talk about, John.
I was around 16. I stayed in someone's house with another kid from college. It was her house. And we were in like a kind of guest room in the old part of the house, let's say, quite a big house.
Yeah.
I was talking to him and I see something appearing in the corner, like it looked like reflected light. You know when you get light reflected off, say, like a tray of water or something, it's kind of...
Oh, just sort of shimmering. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a shimmering light in the corner, and he's in a bed to the right of me. And we're talking, I'm looking at it and kind of going, actually, what is that shining off? Because I was imagining the light shining off something outside and bopping up through the window.
Yeah.
I couldn't work out the angle of it. So I say, "Can you see that?" And he's like, I was like, "Huh?" So I got out of bed and go to him and point to it in the corner. I turn around and point to him and say, like, "Oh, it's not there." So I get back in bed. We carry on talking. And as we're talking, it starts to appear again. I'm like, "You're kidding me." I was like, "There, you tell me you can't see that." He's like, "No." So I go over to him, point up, and he goes, "Oh yeah, we, we fucking legged it out of that room. We ran so hard out of that room. Her parents were away, so there's no one else in the house. She was in her room with this other gun. We just knock on the door, going, "Let us in."
Right.
We slept in their room for the night. Just took a
So were you?
legged it.
Are you? I mean, what did you think that was?
No idea.
Are you thinking it's kind of spectral entity or something like that?
I thought spectral entity at that time,
Yeah.
but because it's like in the corner of the room, so it's not shining from above; it's shining from below.
Yeah.
If it was coming in through a window, and I was thinking that doesn't make sense. The angle. I was trying to figure out how it would be. It didn't really make sense. But I had a thought recently because I was thinking if ever I come with some money, I'm going to target some of these. I'm going to ask some of these like high class remote viewers. I'm going to get some to target some things
Right.
from my past. And I was like, that was one of them.
So,
But
set up the Jon Chandler School of Remote Viewing.
well, just to find out about my own stuff.
I absolutely love it.
No, I'd like task one of the people who does it professionally.
Yeah.
See what they come up with.
Were you like open to that way of thinking when you were that age? Because I think there's probably a lot to be said that most people aren't open-minded. You know, they're just going about their day. They're just very closed in on, getting to a job, etc. I think if you're sort of open-minded to it and you're open to new experiences, I think there's probably something to be said that you do see more than other people. You're willing to accept that there's more to life than just something tangible or what have you.
Absolutely. And I'll use the phrase that's these phrases that catch on and become like a plague. I'm going to say 100%.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that? Anyways.
No, but I've started saying cat quite a lot after we chatted. I was like, this
really?
cat's coming round. And my partner was like looking at me strange. I was like, it's cool though, isn't it, to say cat? And she was like, yeah. It is,
Well, like, I think in the last episode I said how I got influenced by these kind of film noirs, like in my teens, and then it kind of became part of my language.
Yeah.
Like this mix of Suffolk and film noir slang.
Love it.
And that is an example of it, I think. I think I've introduced the word bod quite successfully.
Yeah,
I've noticed that going around. That's from the 90s.
Who's that?
I saw one of these guys being asked recently, was in a Q&A, have you ever been noticed while you're remote viewing? And sometimes if there's entities and such, like, the ETs and stuff, they can get kicked out of the session. Really, but that can happen more often. But one was bizarre. And he said, I was tasked to remote view one of Aleister Crowley's orgies.
Oh.
His black magic orgies.
Right.
So he's in his house. And he says he's in the corner of the room looking down. And then all the people turned around and sort of looked at him. He sensed them all the people in the room looking at him.
Wow.
And he left. he just ended the session because that never happens. And I thought, what if I task someone with this? What was that? And it's them looking in the room.
Because I guess that is another. If you're coming from a military background, that's the next step. You the first step is gathering intelligence. The next step is actually changing, being able to change things.
Oh, definitely. I wonder how much it's been done.
Yeah, because I guess in the dog he does mention that, doesn't he? That because someone says, "Can you move something with kind of telekinesis?" And one of the interviewers says, "Well, we're not talking about a tank moving to society. We're talking about electronics, and how something could be interfered with via one of our remote viewers. A switch or something could be changed on an enemy radar station or something like that." I was with that, and also that kind of concept of time travel seemed to me to be a lot more. I could kind of buy into that a lot more than someone building a contraption.
The thing that fascinates me is it implies something similar to what's sometimes called the Akashic record.
Right.
This place where our consciousness is essentially attached to something else that's everywhere.
Right.
And that's why you can access it, because you're not traveling anywhere. You're just kind of accessing it right here.
Right.
So the guy in this remote viewing documentary called Ingo Swann, he's pretty much the guy who invented
loved him.
remote viewing.
Yeah.
Wow, what a guy.
Great voice.
And the interviewer says, so is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Coming up to the end. And he says, well, I'd like to talk about how you can become a second-class citizen right away. He says, because if you talk about something that you can't explain, or you've got no evidence for, you're put into this category of being a second-class citizen.
Right.
And I've seen it happen in real time, because I like to poke people just so I can get their stories out of them,
Yeah.
So you make yourself a bit vulnerable. Say you're into this stuff, you bring something up, see what you get back.
Yeah.
But there's been people, their face changes,
Right.
A little snigger, not a snigger, like a kind of half smile. They don't even have the pretense of pretending that you're a real person anymore. And I've seen it happen in real time. What they don't understand is that happens in the reverse as well, where
Yeah.
they it's like on The Sims when the little heart goes up and down,
Yeah.
and for me it just goes drop, drop, drop,
Yeah.
drop. There's the world of appearances, which is more important for some people perhaps, and then there's the world of reality, which is more important for others. And they're not worried. You lose something in the world of appearance. There were people I know listen to this, and my Sims heart has gone down because of the things I talk about, right? But I don't mind. I'm not as worried about losing traction in the world of appearance. I'm interested in reality.
I guess
It's the reaction to it that gets me down,
yeah. A totally just total off backhander. It's just like, no, I'm not even engaging with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think often the people with that kind of mindset are the same people in the past would be like trying to burn Newton at the stake or Darwin or someone like this.
Right.
But they think that's their gang. They think they're part of those. They think, oh, Darwin, Newton, we're on that team. No, you wouldn't have been.
Yes.
No, you wouldn't have been. You'd be sticking Pythagoras in a bath and setting a fire under it.
Yes, quite. A large section of societies happy to be presented with the reality that's handed to them by the people in charge who have got various agendas that they're working to.
Exactly. What I wanted to ask you with that, to get out of the way, because one thing that's really intriguing, because I've listened to all the podcasts you've had up so far, and today you've just put up the first episode of the second series of The X-Files, so you're a little bit ahead. So I don't know what's been talked about in between then and now, but I'm really intrigued by the amount of times you ask, so what do you think about this paranormal and UFO stuff? And you ask like a straight man curious about cock, and the response is usually, nah, not bothered, nothing in it.
Right.
And that's the amount of people who have not been that interested has been a really interesting litmus test, especially amongst kind of creative people. I thought there'd be more interest in it, but that's the thing. When it's your hobby, when it's the thing you're into. If I was into trains and you said, so what do you think about that new train they're bringing out down the coming up from London to Norfolk, and then you're like, they'd be like, not that bothered.
Right.
Some things are just not people's area of interest. For example, there's a bit on the news the other day about a museum of bricks this guy's putting together.
Right, I heard this as well, and I absolutely loved it because it came on BBC Radio Scotland. He got interviewed on there, and I loved it so much because it was almost like I was waiting for the interviewer to make the gag about why don't you just build yourself a museum of bricks out of the bricks you've got, and she didn't, right? And to her credit, she didn't. But he was like, to be fair to the guy was like, let's have a bit more energy. I was like, if you're going to come on here and talk about bricks, then just put a bit more passion into it, mate, because I'm with you. Let's have a bricks museum, a Scottish bricks, even niche yourself even more, just Scottish bricks. I loved it.
I was with my dad and I was like, I like bricks now. For some reason, I love finding bricks on the beach and I always pick them up. They're like slightly eroded because there's a really soft coast here on the East Coast, and all this crap's falling in the sea. All these houses are falling in the sea further up, so stuff gets washed up. I always check out the bricks and read them. For some reason, I'm always drawn to bricks. Yeah. That's like, I like bricks. So maybe you should send him a brick with so and so on it. I was like,
you love it.
Well, you can pay for the postage, mate. But I was like, but Dad, I don't know if I'll go to a brick museum. I don't know. I love it, but that's just not my thing.
Sure.
It's the same, it's fair enough. It's hard to kind of understand people not being interested in the thing you're really interested in.
Yeah, I guess. And another thing we talk about on the podcast a lot when people come on who are really into horror is that they see horror as an escapism, right? And so do I. So I think it's maybe too close to home, when I'm asking these people, do you believe this in real life? Have you seen anything? No, I haven't, and they probably wouldn't want to because they turn into this media as like almost like a safety net. It's like, well, I'm watching someone having their head chopped off, I'm watching someone being abducted by an alien, I'm watching what have you, and this is I'm watching this from the safety of my home, and I know I can exorcise any kind of demons or stress I feel.
There's always a sense of like a tinge of slight disappointment in you when someone hasn't got a story for you, Chris. What's your interest?
Sure. Well, I'm probably in that camp, John, to be honest. I mean, I'd love to, and I'd love, maybe like my thing's more ghostly apparitions,
Right.
and I probably look into that, not as much as you look into ufology, but, I'm always interested to know if there's been a new sighting, or even the fact that we're now at a stage where we're explaining things away with infrasound and, and regress trauma or what have you. It still doesn't take away from the fact that what people are seeing in the moment is really interesting, from a kind of internal workings point of view. But I kind of always say that I do, to coin the phrase of the show, I want to believe in it. I don't even really need to see the evidence. I'd love to have a an encounter, and I'd love to be able to kind of work through that and experience that, because I mean I find it fast. I saw something online about why ghosts are seen as kind of not physical, not tangible, like we can see through ghosts, and how ghosts are hovering, and that seemed to have been explained away as Victorian phantasmagoria, and the advent of the photograph, and post that people then started talking about ghosts in spectres floating, and now they're walking through doors. So that's only a 100-year-old thing, and previous to that, you'd had people being visited by tangible, ghosts, which are there, which you feel are there in the room and can push you over, and beyond poltergeist activity into, there's actually a person stood in the room there with you. And
there's a duality to that. One is, I do believe it's like a trickster element to the paranormal. If you ever look in the Skinwalker Ranch, it's like a kind of it's like a jokester, like plays tricks on people.
Right.
It does feel like they can present as your projections.
Sure. Yeah.
I want to come back to what you said about, if you're not ready to see it, you ain't going to see it.
Yeah.
And I've got a few of those things to talk about. So I'm going to go back to when I'm 10 years old. And it was around about this time I saw my first UFO. Things were different back then. My dad he'd often come and tuck me in.
Yeah.
Like later on, he'd come up and tuck me in. So in the duvet, but he'd tuck it right in the side.
Right,
so kind of
so it
really
fall out,
really stuck in there. And the only way to get out is to untuck the duvet.
Yeah.
I wake up in the morning. I'm inside the duvet, between the duvet and the cover, the wrong way up in the bed.
Oh, right.
It's completely tucked in, and the snappers are all done up. It's cut to a little bit later. So let's say mid-90s here. It's kind of X-Files time now we're getting into, I guess.
Yeah.
I wake up in bed. I sit straight up. My bed was under the window at that time.
Yeah.
I kind of pull the curtain aside, look out the window. There's like an orb just going around the side of my house.
Right.
Let's cut to the early 2000s. Have you ever suffered from hypnagogia?
Is that where you're sort of paralysis, is
It's
it?
the sleep paralysis.
Yeah. I have had, I've had that. That's particularly harrowing, isn't it, when that happens?
Did you have that person in the room feeling or not? Because there's like two types.
I've not had the person in the room, no. I've had the sort of constant falling.
That's horrible. So I wake up in the bed. Unusually I'd fallen asleep with the light on. I was working night jobs at the weekend. It was Monday night, so it probably has something to do with it, the tiredness. I wake up and I've got a book like on my chest. I'd fallen asleep and my kind of knees are up like a little mountain. And I'm like, oh, who's that at the end of the bed? So I try and look down and I can't move, nothing. So I'm like, there's somebody there. I can't see him though because I can't get my head up to see who it is.
Yeah.
I just know there's somebody there. Like, I'm really, really struggling to call for my flatmate. Really trying to shout for him. Eventually I just break out of it, just like that. And then I sort of look up, no one there. And the most curious thing about this is by this time I was kind of I'd known about these like abductions more, etc. And I just went, oh right, just went back to sleep. Just turned the light off and went back to sleep.
Yeah.
That's always been the most curious part of that.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. There's things that have happened to everybody that are kind of odd.
Yeah.
That if you hadn't sort of thought about them a bit more, you wouldn't notice them. Now, there's always a buzz when you find something. You feel like you've discovered it. And I've got a great one, which is, I was listening to a recording of a cable TV show from the 90s in America.
Yeah.
A video recording of this, and it's about alien abductions, etc. They've got some abductees on. And a phone call comes in, and it says, oh no, we've got James from Bristol.
Right.
And the voice comes on, and it's like, I know that voice.
Right.
And I was like, from Bristol, come on, man. Because you know the guy inside the Darth Vader suit, David Pratt, from where's he from? That's right, he's from Bristol.
Yes.
It's James Earl Jones. I'm telling you.
Right.
I can find you the video. And I even wrote a comment near the timestamp so I could come back and find it.
I thought you were going to say Dave Prowse. I was like,
Oh,
right.
pretend to be James Earl Jones.
So was James Earl Jones had experiences himself then?
No, but he was in a TV film about the Betty and Barney Hill incident, and that was made in mid '70s. The incident happened in the early '60s,
Yeah.
and the questions he asked was like, "It's definitely because of this." Because one of the things he asked was, "Did they say where they're from?" And the Betty and Barney Hill incident. I don't know if you want to describe what it is, but
I didn't watch it all. I got to the when they were conducting the procedures, and I have to say I did find it very intense.
oh god, yeah,
Because it's the three-hander for a lot of the time. You have James Earl Jones, and you have I forgot the actress who plays Betty.
yeah,
And you have the kind of psychiatrist or marriage counsellor that they're speaking to for a lot of the time. So it could they could do it on the West End stage, but it's incredible performance that he gives. He's breaking
Absolutely.
down, and you really feel like he's, they're sort of battling against themselves, and like, have we seen this? And they've definitely been through something, and it's great. And the film leaves it until the sort of, as I say, the last kind of half an hour for you to see that. So you're really with them.
It's a brilliant piece of TV.
Yeah.
He took it a lot worse. She seemed a lot more lucid during the incidents. I'll just explain briefly. They're in New Hampshire, coming home late at night, late 60s. They get abducted. This is one of like the earliest kind of well-recorded abduction scenarios, which was it was broken to public by a newsman who they didn't want to talk to, and he just apparently, according to Betty or late, his facts were quite good, so she didn't know who you were talking to, and they broke the story for him, so they never came forward with it. It was kind of forced on them.
Right.
But one of the things is she says, "Well, where are you from?" And the guy, the kind of leader, they call him, of these cats on this spaceship, he brings up like the star map. And he's like, "Well, can you see?" It's like she said, it was almost like a 3D map. And this kind of wall just sort of appears. And he says, "Well, can you see where you are in there?" And she says, "Well, I don't know." And she says, "Well, it ain't going to make any sense then, is it?"
Yeah.
But I don't know if this was under regression she drew the map or how accurate she managed to get it. She drew this map, the star map. This is one of the smoking guns, the Betty Hill star map. So she draws this map later on, and it doesn't match anywhere. There was a school teacher who laboriously went through the sky, every star system, like I don't know how many years it took her. And she finds where it is because there were two stars which had not been identified yet at that point, which completes the map.
Really? Oh my God! Right.
And it's identified as, and this comes up a lot in ufology. So James Earl Jones says, "So did they say where they were from?" You know, he's specifically asking something relative to that. I'm like, it's James Earl Jones, and only I know about it. It was such a buzz. One last thing I'll say about that is, I recently saw the footage of Barney going through his regression, like footage of it recorded, and it is absolutely harrowing. So if you think he's given it a lot in that, if anything, he's probably toned it down in the movie.
We are going to have a chat now about X-Files, which is still, covering a similar sort of thematic couple of links to what we've been chatting about previously. We're speaking about Season 2, Episode 17, Endgame, directed by Rob Bowman. The first one written by Frank Spotnitz. It's another barnstormer, I think. It's kind of textbook X-Files. You've got Stephen Williams as X. You've got Mulder's dad in there. You've got the reappearance of Brian Thompson as Alien Bounty Hunter. You've got Samantha Mulder / her clone back. You've got Mitch Pileggi as Walter Skinner. You've got Mulder and Scully. It's a continuation of the last episode as well. So we start with this kind of cliffhanger of Scully in a motel room on the phone to Mulder, and also in the room is Mulder with her / the Alien Bounty Hunter. So we get that kind of recap at the beginning of the episode, and then we go into a literal cold open of a submarine below the Beaufort Sea. They're getting some strange radio signals. They come across something under the ice there. The captain radios it into the admiral, and then he's given this order to go and take out whatever it is below the ice. All hell breaks loose, electrics flashing, lights going out, electrical surges, and then we get the titles. What did you think of this one, John, going into it?
Another absolute kind of, it's kind of lightning bolt fast.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much they're packing in these shows. It's insane. You could have. There's a bit where Mulder tracks down this bounty hunter guy. He's trying to escape back to his craft in a submarine.
Yeah.
And which X tells him, it's under the ice, mate. You can find it yourself. You don't know how he gets. He just gets there. He's just walking around the ice in a studio, which is just snow. And and I'm thinking, you could drag this out to 4 or 5 episodes. You could have an episode of just him trying to catch up with him. How exciting would that be? Is he going to get there in time? But it'd be a completely different type of show. And one thing I thought about it was, this feels like it would be more like really appropriate for a modern audience, because I don't know, how are your kids with their attention spans?
Well, we watched Tim Burton's Batman the other day, and that's 2 hours, and they made it through the entirety of that. So pretty good.
Because I think even with older people, it's been eroded slightly, hasn't it? Like when I sit down to watch movies now, I make sure I got some rum with me, or just have a little bit, just take the edge off your normal speed, just to get into something. It doesn't like bop around too many different stories. Like, here's a storyline, next, finished. It surprised me. Like, I watching old stuff from back then, you imagine it's going to have this kind of more languid pace.
Yeah, there's just so much kind of packed in. You've got I love this bounty hunter. He's just wonderful. He does this little look up to the sky when he's going to change back into the alien bounty hunter, presumably, because that's how the computer effects work. But he's all over the shop. He's great. He's got his little tool that he's puncturing people with. It's like a little sort of shiv thing, and that's creating green goo coming out of everybody. That's great. I mean, Chris Carter himself said that these two, Colony and later Endgame, the two-parter, were the backbone of the show, because it's all about, again, faith and Mulder's faith and this kind of quest that he's on. And now Scully's really involved in it as well. She can see that's the conspiracy there. She goes into Skinner's office at one point and, takes Skinner to task. He's fantastic in this. He's really you don't mess with Skinner, do you?
No.
He has this punch up with Stephen Williams' character, X. X has to pull a gun on Skinner.
Does X have to drive past Mulder's house every time when he goes home, just in case there's a masking tape X on the window?
Yeah, it's awful sort of batter signal, that, isn't it?
I like the fact that they just don't explain it, just that's what happened.
And then X knocks on the door and goes, "Oh no, wrong, I don't need to be," because Scully's inside. He goes, No, it's wrong house. So it's like, no, we know it's you, mate. We know it's you.
Yeah, when we saw his flat, I was thinking, oh yeah, Toombs was in there.
Yeah.
When I saw the scene, she woke up and I was like, oof. It feels mad that it's all part of the same universe.
Of course, and another one that Scully gets, kidnapped in. This is like 5-6 times now. It's like, come on, I really feel sorry for her.
I think if this is maybe, so back then, would the writers have sat down and watched all the other shows? Or do they just busk it?
Yeah, I guess busk it, yeah.
So I think if it's a lot of different writers, I wonder if it's like a subconscious or something in the culture, like a copied way of putting stories together that you can fall into that involves princess gets kidnapped, Knight comes and gets her. So I wonder if that's something bubbling under the subconscious of the writers.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Because no one's looking back at the past episodes, in particular Fire, when Mulder says he's terrified of fire.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's pulled out of, there's a big factory where all the Samantha clones are hanging about, and the big fire, he's pulled out of that, and he's fine.
He's got over it. Like, maybe between he went to therapy and got over it. Maybe that episode he got over it. Maybe that's what it needed.
Yeah.
Don't need to explain, just crack on with it.
Some kind of aversion therapy.
But it doesn't really work with the continuity of a character. No. It's like, my sunflower seeds are on fire, help.
Yeah, we don't see them for a bit either, that crutch, have we? Yeah.
It feels like, I haven't been watching these, Chris, but I have been listening to every one of your podcasts.
What a lovely
I love it. It's such a beautiful beautiful start to the week. I'm always excited. Oh, yes, another one to listen to.
Oh, he's very good.
And in the evening. And so I have been watching them through you.
Yes, yeah. I absolutely loved in this. I just made a note and put Bill Clinton.
Oh, yes, I noticed that on the wall.
Loved that.
Skinner's wall. Bill Clinton.
Skinner's wall, Bill Clinton, and did make me think, is Clinton culpable in this whole shebang?
Oh, yeah. Seeding that in there. And this episode goes so fast, it stretched back Mulder's dad's face.
Yeah.
It's had a bit of work.
He's great, actually, isn't he?
Yeah, just don't even come in. I'll just come to the door, do my lines and fuck off.
Yeah, that's it. One day as work.
Get that done. Off you go. Right, next part. There's like so much in there, like family trauma. Get that in there. Now, one thing at the end, I think there's something that can feed back into the rest of the show here that comes at the end of this episode, that feeds back into the rest of this this chat we've had. It's the kind of denouement at the end where you get a voiceover. I guess it's her report, somewhere her diary. I don't know. Scully's writing about, because Mulder's, he's a bit fucked up. He's in bed, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's had a bit of a hard time. And she's talking about, oh, this mad stuff has happened that you could call paranormal. You know, it's science that brought Mulder back, and it's science that we rely on. I'm like, but for me, here's the thing about the paranormal and science, is that it's the same thing. For me, there's no difference. There's a phenomenon that's happened. Science is just, a theory that can be disproven or proven, and then you change your theory depending on the results of your experiments. And, you know, you're talking about, and there's things explaining ghosts for this or that, or like, it's just science. There's a phenomenon that happens. What's annoying about it is it doesn't really behave very well under laboratory conditions. It's hard to set up those experiments. The billionaire Robert Bigelow, he spent a lot of money looking at Skinwalker Ranch, setting up experiments and stuff. There's people out there trying to work out the science of it. It's in our universe. It's not separate from our universe. Paranormal next to what's normal to us.
Yeah, because he sort of, you have Mulder talking more about faith, don't you?
Yes.
But it's just like, I guess he does say it's the faith to continue on this quest. So
yeah,
they are both in it together, and essentially have both come around to the other's way of thinking, and that way of thinking is now joined. Now that we're looking at it, we're on a quest together to find whatever this is. So we will factor in any and all theories and any and all experiences we have, and we will be open-minded. I think I took great heart in that ending. Yeah. You know, they could have ended the show just there. I was like, right, just draw a line under the X-Files there, because that's the kind of crux of what the show is.
Yeah, last episode.
Believe Me is written and edited by me, Chris Boyd, with production support from Steve Marshall. The music is by Johnny Boyle, and our logo is by Russ Brown. If you like the show, please do hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you out there next time.